Good. Thank you for joining. All right. I think we are 4 minutes past, so we can get started. Everyone knows this is the last session of the 5-part series by Mashood Alam. We prepared a small thank you note for Mashood, so we will just get started by...
Is it recording?
Yes, it is a recording.
Okay.
All right. All right. So thank you, Mashood, for this wonderful journey. For those of you who are joining us just for the 5th session, I'll just make a brief introduction about Mashood. So Mashood is a business innovation leader with a unique blend of business, technology, and design expertise. He drives co-innovation and digital transformation, innovation thinking, innovation center setup, and out-of-the-box approaches to identifying and problem solving by leveraging cutting edge technologies, including machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchains, computer vision, chatbots, cloud, mobile, big data, and networks. Mashood excels in orchestrating leading highly immersive engagements with C-level executives and directors to align strategy and generate ideas for our new business models. In addition, Mashood holds 6 patents and 2 prestigious global awards. Mashood also is a charter member of Open Silicon Valley. So thank you so much, Mashood, for organizing these workshops. I hope everyone enjoyed. Truly grateful to the many who attended all the sessions and also to those who just came to one session just because they had a specific need for learning. Please do email us for any future sessions that you would like Open to arrange. And our email is very simple. It's opensv@gmail.com. For those of you who are not aware of Open, Open is a nonprofit. It's a global organization with almost 15 chapters. The Silicon Valley chapter is actually the Bay Area chapter. We encourage you to become member because your membership contribution goes towards sessions and seminars like this and other social causes as well. And in the end, I would just like to say, it's been amazing learning from all these workshops. The journey continues. Mashood will have Mashood come back sometime in the future as well. For those who have learned so much from these workshops, we'll have them come back at some point in time and see how they have applied these learnings and do some future sessions as well. So without further ado, Mashood, I'll hand the control back over to you.
Thank you very much, Farhan, for the nice introduction and summary. So let me start sharing my screen. Oh, okay. Who is disabled? If you can enable the screen sharing. Okay, I think now I'll be able to do it. Yep, should be able to do it. Okay, I think that my screen is shared now. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Awesome, great. So welcome everyone. This is the last of the sessions of the 5-part series. We've already covered the introduction to design thinking, introduction to the Transform 3+1 framework, which is documented in my book. We went deeper into understanding problem stage, then device solution, and then in the last session, we delved deeper into craft business. And in this session, I'm going to be doing a recap for the benefit of everyone, but also cover the last stage, which is manage risk. How can you handle uncertainty by managing risk? As those who have already attended the previous sessions, there will be several signed copies distributed, and we'll be announcing the winners towards the end of the session. All right, so as you know, I try to keep it interactive. So if I can, I think now I'll have to launch the poll. Let me start the polling. So if you can spend 20 seconds and answer the question, you should have a poll in front of you. So select the first one if you attended all the previous sessions or saw the recording. If you attended 3 of the 4 or at least 1. Or if this is the first time, I wanted to get an idea of how many of the folks have already attended the previous sessions and how many are totally new. So just spend like 10 more seconds and provide your response. That's going to help me in tailoring the session accordingly. Okay, so I'll be about to close this poll and then share with you the results. So I think we have about 80% votes in, so let me end the poll now. Share the results. So here, I think about 60% of the folks attended and watched all the previous sessions, so thank you very much for that. And then the remaining 40%, and a couple of guys are for the first time. So thank you very much. So I'll try to make sure that everybody gets caught up. As you know, those who attended the previous sessions, what I do is towards the end of the session, I ask for your feed forward. So expect the same towards the end of this session as well. But just to highlight the responses that we got after the previous session, pretty much the stage 3, which is crafting the business context, value proposition, elevator pitch, and the tools and template. I think more than 60–70% of the folks considered all of these as extremely important or indispensable. So that was great that at least I was able to deliver it in a way that you found it interesting. Here are some of the feedback that we received from the previous session. Pretty much most of the folks enjoyed it and liked the examples and engagement and also the content. So thank you very much. There were some suggestions. Obviously, in these online sessions, it becomes a little challenging to go through deeper into using a case study. But I'll give you a good hint that later in this session, one of the participants who have been diligently providing and contributing on a real life business example, he will actually be presenting his business model, value proposition, and elevator pitch as well. So I think that should act as a business case real time. So it was an interesting experiment to host these sessions online. Generally, these are in-person sessions. But again, I know that we couldn't go deeper, but hopefully in some future time, we could go deeper. And then finally, I also collected the ratings that the participants received. So I just thought that in the last session, I would share that. Net Promoter Score, for those who don't know, it goes from -100 to 100. And anything above 50 is considered exceptional. So I'm really glad that you found these sessions important. And also the engagement level at the scale of 0 to 7, it's close to 6.5 all across. So I'm really grateful for you for your participation that made it a success. So with that, let's recap and consider this. Even if you have not attended the previous session, this will give you a real hint on the entire journey. And obviously you're welcome to go back and watch the recording to the previous sessions to go deeper into each one of them. So the first, one of the first lessons in the first session was around the equation of innovation. It's about creativity and execution together. It's not just being artistic, but really not just solving the problem, but being able to use your creativity to find the problem and then start solving it. So if you combine both of them, then that is essentially innovation. The other tip that I shared, as you all know, that you all are born creative geniuses, as I shared with you a study done, which proves that pretty much every individual born on the planet there's a 98% chance that they are creative geniuses. But what happens is that during the course of the time, we start in our culture, in our environment, in our schooling, in our homes, we get very critical about each other, and our creativity is sucked out of us. So one trick to remain or bring back your creativity is whenever you are trying to solve a problem or finding the problem, just separate the divergent thinking from convergent thinking. So when you are generating ideas, do not judge them. And when you have generated tons of ideas, then you start. So if you just do that, you will see the level of creativity that's gonna rise in yourself. The other thing, the conceptual part was in design thinking. One part is design, which essentially brings form and function together. It's not just the artistic elements, it is actually the function. So when you see any product with amazing visuals, that is just the tip of the iceberg. The entire, just imagine always that whatever you see, the visual part is just the tip. There is a lot of great insight that has gone into it to bring a better design. And then on the right side, we have thinking. So design thinking helps in bringing both creative thinking as well as business thinking together, so that you find the novel solution and then use your rational mind to really build a solution which is viable and feasible as well. The other Venn diagram that I shared, which is very famous, is this Venn diagram. So always, whenever you are presented with any problem, focus on desirability from human perspective first, then you go into feasibility and viability. And my framework of Transform 3+1 is also builds on this one. The other part is, for any problem that you're trying to solve, focus on the problem first. As I mentioned in the first session, Einstein, I believe, said that if I have an hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes in focusing on the problem and then last 5 minutes on solution. I think it goes the same way. If you don't know which problem you're trying to solve, so finding the right problem to solve before you start solving the problem, I think that's a very important concept. And again, apply this divergent and convergent thinking on both the stages. So with that kind of conceptual summary of design thinking, this is the Transform 3+1 framework that I will quickly review and then go to the last stage, which is manage risk for handling uncertainty. So what we did was, in the first stage is called understand problem, to really find desirability. And we essentially talked about the importance of user research. You have to plan for it. You have to identify who are your stakeholders. You have to understand how those users are connected or influenced by other stakeholders. And then you plan your user research. One of the key aspects is to actually go to where the user is rather than invite the user in a conference room and interviewing or doing just a Zoom session. Rather, go and spend the time with them. And I gave several examples in the first stage session where you actually go and spend the time. The goal is to build empathy. So the core of human-centered innovation is to build empathy with the end user by observing, by being genuinely curious, and then being asking questions. The importance of asking the questions in the right manner is very important. Be open-ended when you're asking questions. So you can go deeper into that session, watching the recording. Here are some ways. I mean, when this is some examples, observe the user in their context, go to their workplace, their home, whatever that is, bring those insights back into a room together with your team, and then convert those into insights. When you put everything on a wall and you start looking at it, observations from many different users, and then you start seeing the themes, that what are those insights. So that's very important for the first stage. Now, this was very, I think this is always a good reminder that do not expect the user to tell you everything, because a lot of times the user has been doing that job for many years. They don't even realize their assumptions that they're operating under. So I think it's your job to go through what the user is telling you, to really understand. That's why deriving that insight in terms of what are the assumptions, and that's where I think the opportunity lies. So I think that's a very important aspect. So I shared obviously all the way some of the tools. The stakeholder is to get a broader context of the user. Empathy map is a tool to help you understand what the user is going through, interpret, and then derive insights. After you have done for several users, you create a fictitious persona that represents the target user. And then you go through their existing journey in terms of what are they doing, what are the emotional highs and lows, what are the tools and touch points they're using, and so on and so forth. And then finally, you come to a user's perspective. What you want to do is do not be overwhelming the problem space with your perspective. What you're interested is finding out what the user's perspective is. I think that's the first stage. So that concludes the stage one, which is understanding the problem. Then we moved into the feasibility part, where actually how can you, once you have understood the problem, how can you, what are the approaches through which you can devise a solution to really find out the feasibility. And again, it's not about your idea, it's about users' job to be done. So I shared the video in the third session from Clay Christensen about job to be done, milkshake example. I would encourage you to go back and then watch that again. It's just so pertinent. That a user is hiring your product or service to do a certain job. What you need to understand is, what is that job, right? So it's all about that. During ideation, you need to, I shared some tips and techniques in terms of how you should be thinking about it. So go for quantity. When you are ideating, brainstorming for new ideas, go for quantity, encourage wild ideas, defer your judgment, and stay focused on the topic, build on each other's ideas. And when you are in person, just be respectful for one conversation and be visual. We kind of downplay the importance of being visual, but I think even if you just imagine, we all intuitively do it. When we are explaining something, we draw boxes and we draw linkages. That's being visual, essentially. So convey that. There are many different ways to be more creative in coming up with new ideas. I shared some of these techniques, so go back and watch that session. Once you have generated tons of ideas, you can prioritize. There are many different ways, but this is the one simple way to prioritization. Value to user, and then you start getting an idea of how feasible this is, and then you try to understand the top right corner are some of those ideas where you can actually have a possibility of creating a solution which is feasible. Now, before you start building that solution, I think it's important to just combine those ideas and then convert them into an experience vision. And what that is essentially, it's a form of a storytelling in which you tell, okay, let's imagine whatever ideas we have come up with, how would those ideas work in the user's context? So just jump in the future and then see if that idea, that product was available, how would the user use it? I think you will get an idea of whether there is suitability in applying that idea. A lot of times what happens is we come up with amazing technical idea, but when we actually expose that idea to the user, we find out that there are many different reasons why it would not work for the user. And that really comes into failure. And that's essentially when you have an idea and it doesn't work, it's essentially a failure. But the other aspect that I explained was failure is our default condition. So you should embrace failure. And here are some of the examples of that conveys that logic. So how can you manage and embrace failure? Through prototyping. Again, prototyping does not have to be fancy. You can use, if I'm sitting with my children with their Lego box, I can use Legos, and children do it intuitively. If you see them, they are always kind of using their Legos or other kind of tools in the house, and then they are imagining things. I think the same concept applies over here. Use paper and pencil. You don't have to be fancy. We have all read some comic books when we were children. It has a script, it has a scene, it has a story. Just write it out on a post-it note, explain it on a flip chart. And if you have resources and your team has designers, they can kind of quickly mock up as well. But the goal is not to make it very thorough. It's just to get the idea across. It's the best way to convey your ideas is to show rather than tell about it. And test with the users. You will have to do like many iterations with the users. Get those feedback, and I explained how different ways you can actually run these testing sessions without judging the user, because what you are interested in is their feedback rather than conveying your ideas and strength. And then another important aspect is look at that experience, whatever, after you have done many prototypes and you know that this is the future experience, you're confident. Now at that point, just pause a little bit, look at what are the other implications. If the user is interacting with many other stakeholders, are there processes and data and systems involved? It's more relevant in enterprise context when if you have an idea of solving a particular problem, that problem, you cannot just deliver a solution in isolation. That solution may have to work with other existing enterprise systems. So you have to just have an idea of what are the different implications so that you do not make any kind of assumptions which do not make sense in the user's context. So that was essentially the second stage, which was the feasibility stage of devising solution. And then in the last session, now you have understood the problem, you have gone through many different iterations of prototyping and created the experience vision, understood the implications. Now let's have a look at whether there is a business value in that. And in the last session, we talked about business value, that business model is fixated. So this is a value-focused, human-centered business model that I exposed you guys and presented last time. At the core of that business model is the value to the user. So I gave this the metaphor of hitting the target. What is the job that you are helping the user to do? That job essentially is allowing the user to accomplish a higher level goal. And then that essentially feeds into even a higher level vision. So understanding those will help you articulate your value proposition in a much more qualitative, aspirational, and emotional dimension rather than quantitative and very technical dimension. Value propositions have to touch the heart rather than just be fixated on the utilitarian value. Working on that, the other aspect is how, when you have understood what is the target that you are helping the user to do, how are you creating the value proposition? Is your solution better than existing alternates, cheaper, faster, or easier? And I also showed the importance of, obviously, quality advantage is great. But do not just focus on cost advantage, because that is not a sustainable strategy going forward. So any of the other three is if you can achieve. And more what we have been observing, especially in the digital space, is the experience advantage that has emerged over the past decade or so. A very viable competitive value proposition, that if you can deliver the same product or even with lesser quality but better experience, customers are more likely to go towards you. So think about these 4 dimensions of the value proposition. Now, as you are creating this value, it's not just sufficient to create the value using resources, process, technology, others, but think about how would the customer know about your solution? How would you deliver to them? Do you need to partner with any partners to help in this from creation to delivery journey, right? And then finally, also value delivery, value creation and delivery is not as hard as value capturing, which is essentially revenue. There is a misconception that if you are able to create value, you'll be able to capture the value yourself as well. Actually, that's not the case. And especially if you look at the statistics, most of the ventures, startup ventures that they fail, they do not fail because they have not found the right problem. They have not solved it with in a novel manner with technology. What they fail is because they could not come up with a business model, which means essentially they could not come up with a way of monetizing sufficiently enough that covers their expenditures, right? So that's essentially. And then the final part of the value is you have to fund. Do you have the resources yourself? Do you need to go to angel investors or others? So think about all that. And then the final aspect, which pretty much everyone forgets, is the business context. Your business model is not working in isolation. You have to look at what are the short-term and long-term trends that are happening in technology, business models, in your industry, in macro economy, and competitively. So just keep an eye on that. Would really help you not be in a position that you become blindsided by a certain new trend that you did not anticipate. So always think of business model as working in that context. So with that, finally, I think we also shared about how to create the elevator pitch, and I gave a short version and a long version. I really have to admire one of the participants, Rahil, who always, after each session, sends the most comprehensive gist of his takings out of that session. So this is essentially he sent in the feedback. So thank you very much, Rahil. With that, Rahil, if Farhan, if you can open up Rahil's line. So Rahil has been very diligent and consistent in contributing, participating. So here now I will hand it over to him, and this will also help in giving a tangible business case example of how you can apply this framework. Rahil has created this presentation, very competent professional over here, and he's going to cover the value proposition, the business model, and the elevator pitch, hopefully within 5 to 7 minutes time. So Rahil, are you on? Can you talk?
Mashood, since you're the host, you need to open up his line.
Do I need to do it? Okay, sorry about that. Let me try over here. Let me find Rahil. Just give me 1 second. Okay, here he is. All right, Rahil. So you should be able to see your presentation on the screen. So spend 5 to 7 minutes and just walk us through that.
Yes, sir. I see that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you very much. To start off, I would say this was one of the best learning in this course that I had in my life. So thank you very much for helping me through this real-time journey. I appreciate that a lot. So browsing to the next one, please.
Okay.
This is essentially, these are the 7 areas of 7 dimensions of business that I cover in providing my services to small business owners with business map, innovation, marketing, sales, operation, finance, and customer success, with mindset and strategies so we could help the small business owners grow their business.
Perfect.
The value proposition is that in this area, there had been business consultants before, but they are not capturing the way we have been able to. We provide better support in terms of having the quality advantage. We have the cost advantage as well, because the others are almost at the double of the cost that we have for this monthly subscription. It's easier for them in terms of, especially in terms of the experience advantage that we have, is that the small business owners had been able to share with us that they were not getting especially that experience with the other business consultants and other coaches. And it takes them less time, being more efficient to hit the target, to get the job done, which is to scale the business. So these are some of the feedbacks that I received from the users in terms of the value proposition map.
Oops. Oh, sorry. There's something wrong here. Okay. Is
Yes.
this the right one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So especially for the business model map, I would say this was the biggest aha moment for me in this course with you over last multiple weeks. And it was difficult. It was actually getting difficult for me how to create, deliver, partner, capture, and fund value for my business. And essentially, this is the area in which I see that a lot of other businesses that I'm helping, they struggle especially in this area. So this was my biggest takeaway from your course, that how do we create value with these small business owners, because we work with them on their current business issues, whatever is important to them in their business, with a lot of mindset exercises and strategies implementation. So that's how is the value creation done. In terms of providing that experience, very different from the other coaches and other consultants. Like I emailed them a lot of those exercises exactly before the start of our Zoom meeting. We work through together. I help them, handhold them. That's a value creation part. Delivering, this is delivered through weekly Zoom meetings, through emails, text messages, phone calls. So they find that I am available with them. We are available with them throughout their journey. If they get any problem, they just text, and we are there to support them. In terms of partnering value, there's an access that they provide to us in everything that they're doing, in their sales, in their CRM solutions, in their accounting, QuickBooks, marketing firm, any firm that is doing a marketing for them, we sit on those meetings with them. Capturing value, I think, was the biggest learning, and this is where a lot of other businesses need handholding as well, that how to capture. So if they're spending a personal investment with us in this 1 month, our strategy is that they must be getting business results back in their business, and that return should be far greater than the personal investment that they're making. So that it has to be captured with the increase in sales, or the accounting, or something that we did with them in their cash flow statement or balance sheet or profit and loss, and all those things. And capturing those is the best. That especially I learned going through this course. And last of that is funding the value. So we have some like a similar crowdsourcing that we did for our business as well. So I'm doing those things for so many other businesses, so that they could fund value, and they find this sustainable. They say themselves that yes, that through this activity we have created a lot of value and delivered it far more than the personal investment that they made.
Yeah, and Raheel, as you become more successful, I think one of the other consideration you will have to do is how would you scale it? Hopefully you will have more customers that you can handle individually or with a small team. So I think that would be a good problem for you to tackle.
Yes, absolutely. You're right, exactly.
Yeah, all right.
So in that regard, I've been working with a startup in regards to like having some artificial intelligence and some like the scaling some of the apps, or so those are some of the areas in which I've been working. So just wanted to share.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah.
Thank you. The business context map in terms of everything outside the business. And I have a question in the context map that I will connect with you later towards the later portion in our study. Yes.
Okay.
Elevator pitch. So for small business owners, Rahil Bodla Success Coach provides business coaching to help them scale their business by mindset and strategies in 7 dimensions: business map, innovation, marketing, sales, operation, finance, and customer success. Currently, the small business owners use business consultants or try to do it on their own, which lacks quality, efficiency, cost effectiveness, and experience. Without our services, small business owners, number one, face difficulty in scaling their business effectively, which it does not have quality. Two, they take more time in scaling, so that is the efficiency advantage. The third one, they feel that the current providers are unaffordable, so the cost is high, almost the double. And fourth one, do not get what they're looking for in terms of that experience that we are providing them with everything, understanding the person and connecting with that person accordingly to make the needle move. We will focus on San Francisco Bay Area first and reach the customers through social media advertising and other marketing networks and channels. And our business model is monthly subscription model at the cost of $800 a month. Our unique selling proposition includes good understanding of the small business segment and good understanding of the coaching services. We have a strong team that has coaching experience plus MIT, Tesla, and startup experience that includes a superstar online platform development expert and a social media advertising expert. Finally, our services have been available for more than 1.5 years in the South Bay region of the Bay Area. We have already made more than $80,000 and we are growing at a rate of 10% every month. We are looking for $500K for 10% stake in our business to expand in the entire Bay Area, stabilize the platform, and invest in marketing in this metropolitan area. Ideally, our investor will be passionate about small business and of course would love coaching.
Awesome. No, I think this is great. I think I think this shows that hopefully this framework helps you structure your thought and look at all the aspects that are really important. And an elevator pitch actually just encapsulates all that essence into kind of a very short 2-minute pitch. So thank you very much, Rahil. I think just one input that I would have is, I think when you're looking at the competitive advantages, I think it might be worth, as you work with your customers, to focus on one or two competitive advantages. Otherwise, you'll be essentially your value pitch might be kind of not seem credible. So I think just think about it. I think generally companies compete on one or two of these competitive advantages rather than all of them at the same time. So for example, look at Apple, they compete on obviously quality and experience advantage. But the cost is pretty high, right? But customers are willing to pay for that, right? So I think about that. But
absolutely, I think that's a very strong. That's a great feedback. So I think number one in our case would be the experience advantage, and number two would be cost. Thank you.
Awesome. This is great. I really appreciate Rahil for all your diligence throughout the last few weeks. And then so. Now, this is kind of the summary of the entire framework, the stage 1, 2, and 3. But now the last stage, which is stage 4, which is throughout this journey, as I mentioned, there is assumptions. There are assumptions that you're making throughout this journey as you are going through understanding the problem, going to devise a solution and crafting a business. You're making tons of assumptions. The risk is essentially nothing but assumptions that we have not validated. And that's one of the key concepts. I introduced this concept of assumptions that throughout this journey, you are making a lot of minor, major, and critical assumptions. And I introduced that throughout this session. So you should be thinking about when you are starting a venture, this is a metaphor of you have none of the assumptions have been validated, right? As you, for example, you have an idea of a great app that solves a particular problem. It's based on assumptions. As you go through understanding the problems, stage one, you do the user research with the key stakeholders, and you start converting a lot of these unvalidated assumptions to validated assumptions. You keep validating your assumptions at a point when you understand that, yes, this is the right problem to solve. Then you have some ideas on how to solve using technology or otherwise. And then you make a lot of assumptions that, yeah, the experience that we're going to be building is with the product and the service that we're going to be offering is going to be considered valuable for our customers. You're making a lot of assumptions. Again, you go through prototyping to validate some of those assumptions, right? And then when you are crafting the business, you again are making a lot of assumptions that, hey, in the business context, none of the other competitors, industry, or macroeconomic trends are going to impact us. But you will do some research, you'll talk to some of the experts in those areas or do online research, read some of the analyst reports and so on and so forth to validate those assumptions. You will be making assumptions about how much the customer will be willing to pay, right? Whether a subscription model would work or a pay-per-use model would work or a retainer model would work or any kind of financial revenue model would work. Those are all based on assumptions. And pricing is one of the trickiest aspects of it. How should you price your product? That all depends on what is the perception you're creating about your offering and the problem that you are solving. The point is, throughout this journey, you will have tons of assumptions. I think it's good to and those assumptions, if they are left unvalidated, they become the risk for your business model. So here, essentially, it's a very simple framework. You don't have to be fancy about it. You just keep documenting all the assumptions that you're making. You can have like a Google Sheet as well with your team and assign it. But the goal is that when the assumption is written, it's new. Then you can just keep track of assign the team or work yourself to either validate that assumption or disprove it, right? So if you are making an assumption and it's validated, great, that your assumption was right. But if it's disproved, that means you need to go back and then make some changes. So how to evaluate that? So this is a very simple framework I kind of came up with. You think about your business, assign your business a risk score. And what does that mean is, as you have enlisted all these minor, major, and critical assumptions, you just add all the number of minor assumptions. You add all the major assumptions, but multiply them by 5. So essentially giving 5 times more weight to a major assumption than to a minor assumption. And then finally add all the critical assumptions that you make by giving them 25 times the weight of a minor assumption. What that means, critical assumption, is that if that assumption was disproved, essentially the entire concept would fail, right? So those are catastrophic assumptions. So you just add them up. So this essentially has the impact values. So every of these assumptions, minor, major, and critical, will have impact values. If you sum them up by properly weighting over here, you will come to a risk score. And then you can have this very simple kind of tracking that, hey, what is our kind of risk score in our business? And this could go more than, by the way, more than 100% as well, as you can see. But the goal is not to really validate all the assumptions. You will never be able to do that. That's one thing. The point of this exercise is not to make sure that you start going and keep validating all the assumptions. No. As long as you know that certain assumptions are minor and major, but they are, even if they are disproved, you can handle them, that's fine. You just want to make sure that you keep tap of the assumptions, but also the critical assumptions, you must take care of them right away. Okay, so that's something. It's a small little tool which will really help you. I didn't want to make it too complex because that's not the point. The point is so that you can be cognizant of what the assumptions. So with that, I would open up a poll here, if I know how to do that. You should be able to see this poll in front of your screen right now. And then check all of those answers which you think are true. So by having a list of all assumptions, you can, I don't know, is it, I don't know why this is truncated over here, but let me just say the first sentence is by having a list of all assumptions, you can eliminate the risk from your business. So the first, I don't know why it is truncated, there's some issue, but the first sentence is by having a list of all assumptions, you can eliminate all the risk in your business. So that's the first one. So feel free to check it if you think that is correct. The second one is minor risks are all assumptions that have minimal impact to the business. Your business viability is in jeopardy if a critical assumption is disproved. That is the third one. The fourth one is new assumptions keep creeping up as you move your idea forward. The next one is as we can never have all the assumptions identified and validated, it is fruitless to identify them. The next one is risk score is a sum of all the risk impact values. And then the last one is risk score helps you keep an eye on overlooked assumptions. I don't know why it's somehow on my end, a few of them have been truncated. But I hope that because I read it, so you will understand. The first one again is by having a list of all assumptions, you can eliminate risk from your business. So that's the first one. So you spend like 20 seconds and then mark all of them which you think are true about managing risk for your business. Okay, I'll give you 20 more seconds. Again, the first one is by having a list of all assumptions, you can eliminate risk from your business. And the last one is risk score helps you keep an eye on overlooked assumptions. I'm just reading these two because they seem to be truncated on my end.
Mashood, actually, you can scroll up and down just to reveal those as well. So on my end, I have
you can see it?
Scroll, yeah.
Okay, if you can see it, that's fine. I don't know, on my end, somehow the first and last one got truncated. So that's why I was reading them. Okay, so I will be, in 10 seconds, I will be ending the poll. So make sure you mark all the ones that you think are true. All right, 5 more seconds. Okay, so I'm ending the poll now. And let me share the results and go through the results over here. So about 2 of you think that by having a list of all assumptions, you can eliminate risk. Well, actually, that's not true. You can never eliminate risk. What you can do is you can just be cognizant of the fact that these are the risks that are in your business. And you need to be mindful of that. You can never eliminate the risk completely. And also, the second one is minor risk are all assumptions that have minimal impact on the business. That's absolutely true. That's the minor risk. Your business viability is in jeopardy if a critical assumption is disproved. Yes, absolutely. That's what the critical assumption is for. And this critical assumption is essentially not just apply to businesses, but apply to economy as well. If you remember in 2008, the financial crisis, the critical assumption behind that was that the real estate prices will continue to go up. And that's why that had a catastrophic impact on the economy worldwide. So I think critical assumptions are very important to just be cognizant of and handle them. New assumptions keep creeping up as you move your idea forward. Absolutely. And actually, that's the point that I'd like to stress again. Even though you have done great user research, you have gone through multiple levels of prototyping, and you have looked at the business model, and you have even launched the product. Again, even after that, your user is not static. The new assumptions could creep up in any of those stages. So always be mindful of that. So again, remember that slide show where 2 fish were in the water. Do not just be complacent once you have done your initial diligence on the risk and the assumptions. The next one is, as we can never have all the assumptions identified and validated, it's fruitless to identify them. Well, actually, it is not. Essentially, it is important to be called, just like at an individual level, you have to be self-aware. At a business level, you have to be self-aware in terms of the assumptions you're making. So I think it's really useful. So I do not agree with that statement. Risk score is the sum of all risk impact values. Yep, Absolutely. And obviously risk impact values. For minor risk is just the sum of all the assumptions. For major, it's the 5 times weight of each major risk, and the critical one is 25 times. So that's the risk impact values. Risk score helps you keep an eye on overlooked assumptions. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a good way to keep track of it so that you can start managing it. So thank you very much for your input for on this. With that, I'll just kind of recap over here that what we have covered in these sessions is 4 stages. Stage 3+1, that what I call. The first one is always understanding the problem by focusing on desirability from human perspective. The second stage is devising a solution by understanding, by prototyping and experimenting to understand feasibility. The third stage is crafting the business to understand viability. And then the final stage, which goes across all the other stages, is keeping a tab on all your assumptions that really inculcates the managed risk. So with that, I want to start a new poll, which is the last poll of all these sessions. This will help in getting to see whether you were able to grasp all some of the concepts that I covered throughout the last few sessions. So in the screen, you should be able to see several sentences. Mark all of them that you think are true. So I'll keep reading them as you keep marking or not marking them. So the first one is, one of the easiest way to be creative is separate divergent thinking from convergent thinking. The second one is, design brings form and function together. The third one is, we should just focus on creative thinking and ignore business thinking for our idea. The fourth one is, an idea has to be desirable by a user for it to be useful. The next is, understanding users' needs requires having empathy with the user. The next one is, the best way to devise a solution is to build it perfectly the first time and launch it. The next one is, experience vision helps in visualizing how a user will benefit from the solution. The next one is, value creation and delivery are sufficient for a business model. The one after that is, business context helps in realizing how your idea fits in current and future environment. And then the last one is, assumptions, if not validated, can severely impact your chances of success. So yeah, spend a minute. I'll give you more than a minute now to mark all the sentences which you think are true about the whole Transform 3+1 stage and applying design thinking to transform an idea into a business. I just want to understand how much did I present remained, and you got it. So yeah, feel free to read these. I know 50% have voted already. So for the remaining 50%, please go ahead and go through all these questions and then mark the ones that you think are true. I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay, 15 more seconds. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, so I'm about to close the poll now. Let me end the poll and then share the results and go through the answers. Okay, you should be able to see the results on your screens now. Let me just walk them through. So the first one was, one of the easiest way to be creative is separate divergent thinking from creative thinking. Absolutely. I think that's one of the easiest things. So as you are generating ideas of a problem, understanding the problem, or even designing a solution, just keep your judgment hat to the side. Just focus on generating more quantity of ideas rather than evaluating the quality of the idea. If you just do that, I think that's going to increase your creativity. You'll be surprised. Okay, the second one was, design brings form and function together. Absolutely. It's not just about the visual appeal, it's about the problem that's being solved. We should just focus on creative thinking and ignore business thinking for our idea. Well, that's actually not true. You have to, as you can see in the second and third stages, that you have to find out whether the idea is feasible or viable. So business thinking is absolutely needed. An idea has to be desirable by a user for it to be useful. Absolutely, that is true. If there is no need by the user is fulfilled, it's very hard to see how that idea is going to succeed. The next one is understanding users' needs requires having empathy with the user. Absolutely. Design thinking's core is grounded in empathy. The next one is the best way to devise a solution is to build it perfectly the first time and launch it. I am glad that nobody checked that. That really validates that the stage 2, which is device solution, through prototyping experimentation, that idea sunk in. So awesome. Thank you very much. Most of the answers have been pretty correct. The next one is experience vision helps in visualizing how a user will benefit from the solution. Absolutely. I think without, and just imagine, if you go to the way of the past, you would actually spend all the resources. If it's an app, you would like hire the development team and then build it or contract it, and then you will show it to the user, and then it's likely going to flop. So you're just kind of storytelling and creating the experience vision, validating it with the user. It does not, you don't waste a lot of time, you don't waste a lot of resources, and you validate your assumptions. The next one was value creation and delivery are sufficient for a business model. Absolutely not. If you remember the business model part, value partnering, value capture, and value funding. These three are the other aspects. Business context helps in realizing how your idea fits in the current and future environment. Absolutely. Your idea does not work in isolation. It is working in an industry. It is working in influenced by technology, in the business climate, in the macro economy. So all these factors influence. And then finally, assumptions, if not validated, can severely impact the chances of success. Absolutely true. That's the reason why you should be keeping tab of your assumptions to handle risk. Now, thank you very much for all your responses. Your participation has been great. Before we go to the last section, which is sharing a few more resources for you to check in and also announcing the winners of the book, I would ask you, as I do always, I'm sending this in the chat right now. Where is it? Chat, this link. So I want everyone to please open your chat, copy and paste this link to your browser or click on it and jump on it. You should be able to see a form like the one, this form. So feed forward for Design Thinking Session 5 on June 6th. Please launch it now and provide feedback for today's session. What I will do is, in the meantime, if there are any Q&A, I can start addressing them. For everyone, please look at your chat, click on the link there, and then provide feed forward for today's session. After answering some of the Q&A, I will be sharing some resources and announcing the winners. So yeah, Farhan, let me just check. I'll just read the. Oh, chat is disabled. Is this? How can I enable chat, Farhan?
I just sent another message, so I'm hoping that everybody should have received it by now.
Okay, let us know if you are able to. Okay, use Q&A. Okay, interesting. Okay, let me try to send the link again on chat. Oh, okay, maybe over here. Okay, now can you please write on chat if you can see the link? I think, Farhan, that people are having a difficulty in looking at the chat. Is it disabled or?
No, it should be, because we just resent it. I think the way you sent it the last time was a private message, but this time you should have, all the panel attendees and the panelists should have received it. Okay,
well, they can see the chat, but they cannot type. Okay. Can you, okay, chat is disabled. We can see it now. Okay, we can. Okay, so great. So if you can just do me a favor and click on that link or copy paste that link. Okay, I already got one response, so that's great. I think people are able to see it. So as you provide the the feed forward. Let me see if there are any questions that I can address. No, I think I didn't see any questions here. Okay, we cover business model in the business model map, and there is business model in the context. Well, you can clarify, please. Okay, sorry, say it again. Map, and there is business model in the business model context. Yeah, so I think it's all. So Rahil, I think good question for clarification. So if you go through this session again, the entire thing, the entire framework makes a business model. At the core of it is the need, so the hitting the target for the user, then the value proposition, right? And then the business model map, and then the business context. So I think the entire framework the core part is the business model part, but then it does not live in isolation. So business context is the externalities that you are impacted with. So focusing on the value proposition, value delivery, value creation, etc. That's the core of the business model, and business context help you in understanding the environment in which your business is operating. So I hope that was clear. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I think for some reason, at least I don't see anything in the chat over here, but let's see. I think I already have 6 responses. So yeah, for all of the others who have not yet provided feed forward, please do so either now or after the session is completed. But what I'll do is I will just share some useful resources at this point. These are 3 books, which really is it's pretty good in terms of providing a different perspective. So Change by Design by Tim Brown is very good, how design thinking transforms organizations and inspires innovation. The other one is Game Storming. It's a very nice book, which has, I think, about 200 or so different techniques and frameworks that you can use at different stages in ideation, it helps you in structuring your frameworks. And then the final one is The Design of Everyday Things. I believe the first version was The Psychology of Everyday Things or something like that, by Don Norman. I think this is should be a must read for anyone, designer, non-designer, doesn't matter. I think it helps you understand how to think about solving some problems. Let me just go to so recap, and then I'll come back and answer some questions. But we have covered in this 5-part series, introduction to design, the framework of transformation, transforming an idea to a business, all the way from understanding problem, creating a solution, crafting a business, and managing risk. And I really appreciate all your participation. But before I announce the winners, I'd like to give a special thank you to Open globally, but also Open Silicon Valley for facilitating and organizing the sessions. I know there's a lot that has to be done. I also like to give special thanks to Farhan for making sure that everything works smoothly. I know that there's a lot of work and coordination that is needed to pull any of these one sessions, let alone a sequence of 5. So thank you very much, Farhan, for all your help throughout the past few weeks. And also I'd like to give thanks to Andalit, the president of Open Silicon Valley. She actually reached out to me about these sessions earlier this year or end of last year, and that kind of kindled everything. And then finally, a big thank you to all of you, all the participants of today's session, but also the participants of the last 4 sessions. I think all these sessions have been made successful because of your participation. So thank you very much. And then finally, okay, where it is. Okay, interesting. Oh, that is very interesting. I had a slide prepared. Somehow that slide has been deleted. Oh man, I don't know. I've lost that slide. Oh man, this is not right. I don't know. For some reason, I had a slide which which got deleted in the thick of things. But anyways, we were announcing the winners, and maybe we can. I'll let Farhan announce the winners. Farhan, if you mind, want to do it. But before so there were three ways you could win the personalized copy of my book. One was if you participated all the sessions, you will get a chance, and there will be a random draw. So Farhan, do we have the name of who is the lucky winner who participated in all the sessions? And there are many people who did, but I think we did a draw, and one lucky winner came out.
Sure. Thank you for that, Mashood. There were some of you who had participated in all the sessions. So what we did is we isolated those names of some amazing participants, and then we just did a draw out of those names. So the lucky winner for one copy of Mashood's personalized book is Mohammed Rashid. And Mohammed, if you are on the line, will you be kind enough to send us an email at opensv@gmail.com? And I will also reach out to you after the call just to see where would you like that book to be shipped, and what would you like Mashood to say on that book? What piece of advice would like Mashood to give on that personalized copy of your book? And then we will make arrangements to get that sent over to you.
Okay. They were the second way of getting the book was by becoming open members, and I believe 3 individuals have become members. So Farhan, if you want to introduce.
Sure. And again, thank you so much for everyone who signed up for open membership. As I mentioned earlier in my call, that these memberships, they help us run same kind of workshops, the one you have been participating. We have these workshops throughout the year, and they are various networking events, workshops, other professional development events that go on throughout the year. So the 3 team members who signed up and who will be getting their own personalized copy are Mohammed Hanif, Khalid Sheikh, and Arif and Shiri Maskatia. And again, I will be emailing you all 3 after our call today, just to see where you would like us to deliver the personalized copy of Mashood's book, and also what advice you would like to hear from Mashood that he can pen into the book as well.
Great. And then finally, I think there was one special prize for quality participation throughout these sessions. And as you saw that one individual was very proactive in providing input and feedback, and even sharing his business throughout these sessions. And I've decided to send my personalized copy, a signed copy to him. His name is Rahil Bodla. Rahil, congratulations, and thank you very much for your amazing participation. It has really made a great impact on improving the quality of the session. So thank you very much, Rahil. You'll be receiving, send an email to Farhan about your address, and I'll be emailing you the signed copy.
Sure. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And truly appreciate it. Mashood, we do have a few questions.
Yes.
So let's take a moment to answer those. And I would encourage everyone to please use the Q&A window. I think we made a decision early on to disable the chat window because at times it gets too distracting. But the Q&A window helps us keep the session a bit more organized. So I think the first question that came in is from Asim. What should be the next step in our learning journey for design thinking?
Well, it's, as I mentioned, if you remember the first session, you only learn by doing it. So I would encourage you to join some community, online community of design thinkers. If you have in your local community, if there is a forum, if there is a design agency, volunteer there, be part of them. reach out to some of the innovation teams in your organizations. A lot of times they have design thinkers, and volunteer your time with them. There is no shortcut to really understanding is you have to learn by doing it. So I encourage you to apply yourself, because once you are, and I know in these COVID situations, a lot of these in-person immersive workshops are not happening. But if there is an opportunity to participate in an online session, feel free to do that. And then as the society opens up, or hopefully in the next few months, then figure out and find that opportunity to be part of that. So applying that. And then secondly, the framework that I shared over here, feel free to leverage any aspect of it. If you just want to explore, if you are working on a problem or being presented by a problem, just go through the stage one to understand how to understand the problem first. If you are working on an idea, try doing prototyping. For that, you don't even need to do anything. You just start sketching it on a piece of paper and then validating it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it's just continue the great work and apply your learnings. The best way to retain knowledge.
Sure. The next question is from Ashok. And Ashok, I know you have been on in all the 5 sessions, so we want to personally say thank you so much for your participation. It's these kind of participations that make the workshops entertaining, interesting, and captivating. So thank you. And your question is, how do you choose the right persona?
It all depends on the problem you're trying to solve. I think the way we do it, and I've done it many times, is using the stakeholder map. So just imagine if they're like, your team has 3 to 4 people, and you have a problem to solve, right? So just draw on a piece of paper these 3 circles, the stakeholder map, and then ask every individual to put on Post-its who are the users and who are the direct and influence stakeholders on pieces of Post-its, and then place it. You will see very soon there will be an emergence of a few target users that everybody thinks that the problem affects them. I think those will be a good point to start. And then obviously you follow that up with user research, talk to those and identify those users, personas that you have identified, and then talk to them, and then validate whether the problem that you have identified is really a problem for them or not. So I think that's how you do it.
All right. The next question is from Hanif. And Hanif, thank you so much. I know you're one of our regulars as well. So truly appreciate your participation, and thank you for making these sessions a success. Hanif's question is Capture in business model capturing value for user or for the business itself?
No, Capture is essentially for your business. So how would you capture the value for yourself? So it ties to the revenue model and the pricing strategy.
Again, is a question from Rashid. And again, Rashid, I know you are regular participant as well. So thank you.
Is this Mohammed Rashid?
Yes.
Okay, well, congratulations
as well.
Yeah.
How much time focus we need for each item is in business context? And then the next question is, and what will be the impact if we focus more on value creation?
So the first question is, let me address the first question, business context. So business context, you should not be spending like way too much time. It's on a big scheme of things, I think it's just even spending a few hours or half a day max would be really useful, so that you understand the different technology trends that are impacting in today and future, different business models that might be coming in, the different macroeconomic aspects. So don't spend too much time, but I think a few hours would really help with your team. The other question is, what will be the impact if we more focus on value creation? Well, I think it really depends. I can't really give a blanket answer to this question, because it really depends on your business and your idea. A lot of times, for I think in some cases, if you it's actually business, the creation part is actually I would spend more time in the front end to understanding the problem and then prototyping it. Now, part of prototyping is actually creation, right? Because you are validating and you are testing out different technologies. And as you prototype, you start with a very low fidelity, just sketches on paper, and then you improve the fidelity to mid fidelity wireframe mockups, and then high fidelity, really visual design. But also at the same time, you start testing out the technology feasibility as well. Whether the framework that you are using from technology stack, whether it's going to work or not. So I think value creation is very important, but more important is what are you creating, whether that resonates with the end customers or not. So, and again, if you just keep creating the value, but without thinking of how will you deliver the value to the customer, and how would you reach the end users, I think then you will be shorthanded that you have a piece of solution, but you don't know how to reach. So you start thinking about that as well. But value creation is essentially one of the key aspects. But the core is understanding the problem you're trying to solve. How can you help the end user hit the target better, faster, cheaper, easier way?
Sure. So Mashud, if you would be kind enough to make me the host again, I'm thinking we can open up 1 or 2 lines and see if people have any questions. We can take questions live as well.
Okay.
There's a question from Mubashir, is that if I want to buy the book, what's the best way? I'm based in the UK. So Mubashir,
it's available everywhere. It's available on Amazon and wherever the books are sold. If there are, I would, I think the publisher is the UK publisher, Taylor Francis and Routledge. So I think wherever in UK, the best of avenue for online book purchase, I assume that it will be available there.
Sure. And then we are, if anybody wants to say a few words or has any questions, please raise your hand and we will open up your line so that you can go ahead and say a few words. And then there's a question from Arif Maskatia, and thank you so much, Arif, for joining Open as a member. We truly appreciate you signing up. The question is, any plans to translate your book in other languages?
Well, actually, it depends on the need. Right now, there is one request that came in from Vietnam, and that is underway right now. But if you think that it should be translated in other languages, feel free to send me an email at mmalam@gmail.com. I'll be happy to connect you with the publisher, and they have a mechanism through which they evaluate the right translators and make sure that that process gets taken care of.
Okay. So I'm going to open up the lines. Rahil, I'm going to open up yours first. Please go ahead.
Yes. So this is more of gratitude that literally in last 5 weeks in last 6 weeks, I have learned a lot applying these things in my business, in my work. So it's more of, especially one thing that I was struggling with before this course was not finding concrete ways to deliver and have the value perceived. And for all the other businesses, I would say as well, it's a challenge that if the value perception is greater than the price, then definitely the needle moves. Otherwise, it does not. So that would be my biggest takeaway. And I want to express my thankfulness and gratitude to Mashud, to Farhan, to all the Open team. Thank you very much for helping me in my work.
Thank you, Rahil, for the nice comments.
Right. So I'm going to open up. The next one is Ashok.
Yeah.
Ashok, please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Masood and Farhan. So we learned a lot in these sessions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashok, for your participation. I know you are one of the most consistent participants, so thank you.
So the next one is Rashid. Rashid, I'm going to open up your line. So please go ahead.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So just thank you so much for this session. Like, it's very informative. And I feel like this will apply for all of our day by day business work, like uh, even in the technical area, like how to understand the business context and then jump to the solution instead of directly digging out anything. So like I am working in the development area, so I feel like this provide a whole context understanding, because many times we are not uh, like inventing some library or technology, we are reusing, we are not like uh, uh, inventing the wheel, we are using whole available tools. So I think this gives an many new perspective and dimensions how we can resolve our work. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rashid, for your comments. I think that reminds me of why I wrote the book in the first place. So when I was driving a lot of these innovation engagements with our customers, I worked with three constituents. One were the business leaders who were very good analytical and good at understanding the numbers and business value. The second constituents were the technologists who were very good at and passionate about their technology, but they had no idea about user centricity or very little idea about the business. And then the third constituents were the designers who were very empathetic. They could understand the user's perspective, but did not have business sense or technology understanding. So as I was in the middle of orchestrating these engagements with interacting with these constituents, I thought that I think this to capture that learning in this framework, so that will help these three constituents. So if you are a business leader, if you are a technology leader or a designer, it should help hopefully bring the other dimensions to you. So thank you very much, Rashid, for that comment.
Sure. And we'll take one last question, and that is from Mariam. And then again, Mariam, thank you so much. I know you're one of our regular participants in these workshops as well. Truly appreciate you participating and making this a success for Open Silicon Valley. Her question is your book interactive like a workbook?
It has a lot of templates. So yeah, I mean, the book is not a very theoretical book. So there is some theory, but mostly it is instructions on how to orchestrate these sessions that the templates I just briefly shared. It will walk you through specifically how to organize that session. And even to the level of using different post-it colors to record different things, and it has guide for the lead, the session lead, and how the participants should be interacting. So I think if that's what you meant by interactivity, so yeah, it helps you in running these interactive sessions as well.
Sure.
Okay.
With that, I would like to remind everyone that this session, the last session, will also be available on our YouTube channel. If you have missed any of our prior sessions, just go onto YouTube and in the search box, type in Open Silicon Valley. And once you go on our page, there's a folder which says Design Thinking. We created that folder especially for this purpose to consolidate all design thinking workshops at one place. So it's really easy for anyone to follow. And if you want to know more about other upcoming sessions, please like our Open Silicon Valley page on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We announce all our workshops there. And all recordings of these workshops are on our YouTube channel. With that, Mashood, I'll hand it back to you for any final thoughts before we say thank you and goodbye to everyone.
Well, for final thoughts, thank you very much, Farhan, Open Silicon Valley, and all of you for participating. It has been a great journey. I didn't know whether running these online is going to be successful, but I think because of your participation and flexibility, I think we were able to make some progress. So thank you very much. Just one final thought. Do remember that you're all creative geniuses and have creative confidence to drive change in the world. And stay safe, stay healthy. Great, connect with me online. We'll hope that some of these sessions will help you in some way. So thank you very much. With that, goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye all.